Welcome back, dear listeners, to Fright or Flight, the Saw podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every entry into the Saw franchise.
I am Jumpscare Jared, or Geraldine, also known as the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie. I'm the Flight of the podcast.
And together, we're going to take a deep dive into the 9 films, soon to be 10 films, in the franchise that is known as Saw.
Geraldine, I'm so excited about this one. This is the first episode of what, season 4?
Season 4, right?
Can you believe it?
Season 4.
There's a lot of movies in this franchise, and we're going to be going over every one of them. I hope everybody listening is excited. I don't know how many people have seen most of these movies, but I think most people have seen this first one.
Most people have seen the first one. I believe another one that's pretty popular among the franchise, at least in my opinion, is the third one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it. That's all that I know.
Yeah, but there's so many of them. There's actually, they had a 7-year stint where they were releasing these movies every year.
That's absolutely bonkers, and they needed to take a chill pill. And I'm hoping that this last one will be a finale, and then we will see no more. Because one of them is literally named Saw, the final chapter.
That's the 7th one.
That's really funny, because why would they just stop there? If it's called the final chapter, make it end, babe.
Well, they did, and then I think it was a while before they made the next one. At least I think it was 7 years, because I think the final chapter came out in 2010, and the one that brought it back was Jigsaw in 2017. But we're gonna go over every single one of these dang movies, just like we did with Texas Chainsaw. And I'm super excited. This is the tables are kind of flipped this season.
They are,
because I am. Awkwardly enough, a big Saw fan.
Which is really funny, given that you don't like horror movies. But
I don't like horror movies, but I think something about this franchise growing up was endearing to me. I don't know why. I can't really explain it to you because I'm squeamish. I'm a scaredy cat.
Because he's the Jigsaw killer.
I do that. Now that is interesting because a lot of the films we've seen so far involve kind of supernatural elements in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But this one is kind of like a thriller, like a detective.
I love that stuff, almost like a whodunit.
Yes,
I love a whodunit aspect.
I really like it. A lot of people reference Seven as an inspiration to this film.
That is literally what I thought of when I watched it, and Seven is also a very, very good film.
I've never seen it, but I really have to go back to watch it. This movie has inspired a lot of things. I think a lot of for example, Hostel, a lot of torture related films. I don't necessarily equate this one to, some people throw around the word torture porn. I
was going to say that.
I don't think this one quite is that. I think in the future we do focus more on the traps, but I feel like this one is more, like you said, like a whodunit investigation story. Maybe further down the line, it'll change up quite a bit. Another movie that inspired this movie that I actually watched today, just at work, was Cube. I don't know if have you ever heard of the movie Cube?
Cube. It doesn't ring a bell, actually.
So, nowadays we have games that we can go to called escape games, right?
Yes.
We have escape rooms, and I don't know if you felt it watching this movie.
Yes,
but
I was like, this would be a fun escape room.
Well, this is what helped launch escape rooms. The concept is fairly novel in this film. It was done before in that movie I mentioned before, Cube.
Okay.
Where it's not quite the same thing though. In Cube, it's more like a sci-fi kind of thing where each room is really sterile. I don't know if you ever played the Portal franchise or seen any of the Portal video games.
I have not.
But it's not there's no toilets. All the walls are blank. It's an unrealistic thing. And instead of solving puzzles and riddles like you do in this from notes and tapes, it's more just there's a death trap in every room, and it's more like an obstacle course. But this one,
okay.
Saw really. I mean, it's practically already like an escape room, and they're trying to get out of there. Like we were saying before, this movie is one of my exceptions. I don't know why, but I think the heart and charm that these movies had for me, part of it might be because when I was a kid, I remember not having cable for a while.
Okay.
And we had this really nice, friendly neighbor who had a bunch of DVDs.
Love
and
that
they
for
came
us.
over and dropped off a good bit of them for me and my family to watch. And one of them happened to be Saw. It wasn't this one, it was Saw 4. And it's one of the few out of all the DVDs that I would just watch over and over again because they didn't have cable. Another one being Not Another Teen Movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that film.
I haven't. It's hilarious.
I've seen that movie a million times because I didn't have anything else to watch. And Saw scared me. So I did watch that a few times, but it was mostly Not Another Teen Movie because that one wasn't scary.
That's a big jump between genres.
Yeah, it is. I don't think. It's just a lot of comedy in that is very like, I don't know, forward, and I do enjoy it. But it's just funny that
that is funny.
I haven't seen Chris Evans in any role more than I have in
oh my God.
another teen movie.
That's hilarious. But what about like getting into the like. For the viewers at home who may not have even gotten into the Saw franchise but are joining us along for this ride this season. First of all, welcome N to like join us for that. We typically will watch the movie, briefly recap it on here for you guys, talk about the things that we liked and don't like about the movie. So you guys can kind of like have your own opinion, form your own opinion, but like watch it as well.
Yeah, we're going to rank these movies at the end of each episode. And by the end of the season, we're going to determine which one is our favorite and which ones we don't like. But I'm super interested in hearing like if you guys disagree with us. That's part of like the community aspect. If you guys think our opinions are god awful or that you claim to have some kind of superiority in opinion, I'd love to hear it.
That's also true. We're also doing a couple of new things this season. We're changing it up a little bit, guys. Instead of us recapping for the entirety of the episode, we're going to have a designated like plot for you, so you guys can kind of listen through it and you kind of get a shortened version, because sometimes we have gone a little extensive. If you've watched them or listened to any of our previous episodes, no shame to us. We're still learning. We're figuring things out.
Yeah.
But new season, new things. Yeah. So that's one thing that we're doing new. Another new thing that we're doing new is that we're, instead of having two separate ranking lists, we're going to have a unified list this season. So it's going to be interesting because, or if there's a movie that he's particularly excited about and I particularly hated it, we're going to do like an average or something. We're going to like average it out and have like a score, and it'll be a unified list. And we may or may not even agree with that list, but that's going to be the final list.
Yeah, we might both be mad at it. We might both not be happy with the list.
But it's just for an easier thing to keep up with.
Because like last season, it was just like we kept on saying Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre the Next Generation.
Challenging.
It really was, and it just gets confusing. And I think it's even hard to listen to. So I don't know if you guys were even able to pay attention to the list very well.
Like doing like the math equation, and I'm like, But another new thing that we're doing that we're excited about, that this was actually Frankie's baby. This was his idea. If you want to talk about it a little bit, another ranking list that we're doing that is going to be super exciting.
Oh yeah, we're doing these movies feature a lot of traps.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a top 10 list of all our favorite traps from the season. This one, for example, features 3 that I'm excited to talk to you about, Geraldine. And each movie, we're going to be taking our favorite from the film and putting them in a top 10 list. And by the end of this, we'll have like what we think, at least, to be like the best, most gruesome, most clever traps that you can give them. And we're super excited about that.
I'm very excited about it. Again, I haven't seen these movies, really. I've seen this one. This is the only movie that I've seen. So buckle up.
That's right. Okay, so I'm sure, Geraldine, you're a horror expert. You're familiar, at least a little bit.
I'm not an expert, but
with the director of this film.
I am.
James Wan.
I am.
He is very notable. The story behind this movie is that James Wan, and he went to film school. He's Australian, by the way. I don't know if you.
I did know that because I've listened to interviews with him, and he has an Australian accent, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I didn't know he was Australian, but he went to school, and when he graduated with Lee Winnell, they went up to partner together to make a film. You don't have a lot of money when you're first starting out. So the concept of this film was born from that. What if we just take 2 guys in one bathroom and a corpse?
Well, that's and I was thinking that throughout the movie when I was watching it. I was like, man, this would be such an easy movie to make.
Yeah, it's just so easily conceptual. And because it's easy to make, it was on a very small budget. What ended up happening is they were trying to get this movie made in Australia, but nobody was taking a bite, right? Mm. So they were like, okay, fine, we'll make like a 10-minute short film just to promote the movie and like to really give people a taste of what we're trying to do here. So they made the 10-minute short film, and what the short film is it's like, I think people call it Saw 0.5, but it's just a reverse bear trap scene, except it was done with Lee Winnell, the writer, and he was that person that was acting the victim in it, and it was basically almost shot for shot what they ended up doing. They already had the bear trap made. They already had Billy the puppet made that James Wan both built by hand himself.
That is very, because I don't know any of the behind the scenes knowledge that this movie offers. So this is going to be a fun ride for me.
They were very dedicated to it. So dedicated that when they finished it, when they sent it over to executives in LA, in Hollywood, they were offered a contract before they even landed on the tarmac. Like the producer, the executives in LA really liked the movie. And by the time the contract was signed, James and Lee got exactly what they wanted, which was for James to direct the film, for Lee to write and star in the movie. So I don't know if you know this, but the writer plays Adam, one of our main leads.
I did know that because when I watched it, again, this is my second watch through ever in my lifetime. When I sat down to watch it, I was like, oh my God, I know him. He was in the Insidious films.
All right.
And I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Because I recognized him. And I remember having conversations with my mom about how he was involved in the behind the scenes of a lot of those films and the Conjuring films as well. Yeah. Because the whole Controverse, there's a whole story behind all of them. They're all mostly inspired by true events, which is cool. But they've, of course, taken Hollywood liberties because you want to make it scary and appealing to people who will go see it.
Yeah.
But Lee Winnell was behind a lot of those as well. So I was like, oh my God, I recognize him.
It's so, like, these two honestly have so much under their belt. Like, you know, you said, between Insidious, The Conjuring, Lee Winnell directed The Invisible Man that came out a couple years ago.
I forgot about that. He did.
Yes. I know James Wan, you know, he does the Aquaman films. He did one of the Fast and Furious movies, actually. My favorite one. I know you're not a fan.
I'm not a fan of the Fast and Furious
movies. I love them. And he
movies.
actually directed my favorite one of them, number 7. He also produced Megan that came out earlier this year.
Yes, he did. And it was fantastic. I enjoyed it.
Apparently, it's going to get a sequel. People are talking about a sequel.
Yes, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah, welcome in. Here's the recap of the movie.
A man submerged in the water of an old, dilapidated bathtub awakens in a panic. The water drains, there's no light, and he has no clue where he is. After screaming for help, a voice responds. Someone else is in the room with him. The other voice finds the light switch, and they see the scene in front of them. An abandoned bathroom, disgusting and dirty after years of misuse, and the disfigured body of a deceased man in the middle of the floor. What's worse, they can't find a way to exit, and they're chained to the walls. Both men find a tape in their pockets. Adam's tape urges him to survive, while Gordon's orders him to kill Adam by 6 o'clock, or the lives of his wife and daughter will be taken instead. The men convince each other that there must be another way. Adam follows Dr. Gordon's lead, and they both begin to look for clues. Follow your heart, the tape said. The heart smeared on the toilet, that must be it. Adam digs through the sewage, submerging his arm elbow deep into the dark toilet water. Nothing. Checking the tank instead, he finds a concealed bag. Inside it holds 2 hacksaws, one for each of them. What a relief. But after working at his chain in desperation, Adam's saw breaks. It's not sharp enough to cut through the cold chains linking them to the walls. Dr. Gordon realizes the truth before Adam does. He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet. It's a nightmare, and Dr. Gordon knows exactly who's behind it. It was 5 months ago when, in the middle of teaching a class of med students the details of a patient's aggressive cancer, Dr. Gordon was interrupted. "He has a name, you know," said Zepp, an orderly at the hospital. "It's John." Dr. Gordon dismisses this, only to be interrupted again shortly after. This time it's not something he can so easily wave off. It's a detective who has found evidence with Dr. Gordon's fingerprints linking him to a terrifying crime scene. One that was created by a new serial killer, the one they are now calling Jigsaw. Dr. Gordon proves his innocence with his alibi, but the detective isn't convinced. He persuades the doctor to view a testimony by the only living survivor of one of Jigsaw's traps, Amanda. Dr. Gordon does so begrudgingly, and what he learns chills him to the bone. Amanda, a drug addict, was abducted by Jigsaw and placed into a room attached to a terrifying contraption. There's static to her left, and she turns to see a TV just in view. A crudely made puppet sits in frame and tells her that he wants to play a game. The only way to free herself is to dissect a key out of a so-called dead man's body across the room, and if she doesn't do it in time, the apparatus around her skull will snap her head in 2. The puppet seems to affectionately call this a reverse bear trap. Amanda follows the puppet's instructions. Even though the man revealed to be drugged, not deceased, she prevails to disembowel him and retrieves the key. Only seconds after ripping the trap off her head, it springs open. The door to the room opens, and the puppet reveals himself, slowly pedaling in on a children's tricycle. Amanda scrambles to leave this personal hell, but the words of the puppet continue to ring in her head. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive, but not you. Not anymore. When she reveals this in her testimony, the detective asks her for her confirmation. "Are you grateful?" he says. Amanda, deeply traumatized yet equally moved, agrees. "He helped me," she admits. Everything was adding up. Dr. Gordon knew it was true. They were in a trap just like Amanda was. They were in the middle of Jigsaw's newest game. The two men find a box with a cell phone hidden in the room. Gordon quickly finds out it's only made to receive calls, and there's one coming in right now. It's Allison, his wife. She confirms she's being held captive. During this call, she takes her opportunity to attack her captor, who appears to be Zepp, the orderly. A stray bullet rings out, and Detective Tapp, who has been just across the street, hears this and immediately moves in. The screams of the struggle and ringing of bullets on the other side of the line throws Gordon into the trenches of panic. He's losing it. His family needs him. To Adam's absolute horror, Dr. Gordon grabs his own hacksaw. Push and pull, slice by slice, Gordon saws through his ankle. "I'm sorry, Adam. You have to die. My family needs me," Gordon says with the voice of a desperate man. Adam pleads for his life. Gordon crawls to the gun laying on the floor, aims, and shoots. Zepp kills Detective Tapp in a harrowing chase in the warehouse before he arrives at the bathroom Adam and Dr. Gordon have been chained in. Unfortunately, the clock has struck for Dr. Gordon, and his last desperate attempt to free himself was meritless. It was too late. But in a smashing plot twist, Adam rises as if from the dead and ambushes Zepp where he stands. Zepp falls to the ground, and Adam crushes his head underneath many crazed strikes with the cover of the toilet tank. Their perceived killer dead, Adam and Gordon embrace each other in a moment of relief. But Gordon is losing blood, and fast. He has to leave Adam here alone, still chained, to go find help. His last words to his companion reassuring him that he will return, and they will be fine. After Gordon crawls out of the bathroom, Adam finds a tape in Zepp's pocket. The tape reveals yet another one of Jigsaw's cryptic messages. Zepp wasn't the killer. He was in his own trap. As the tape plays out, the body of the dead man in the middle of the room slowly rises. Adam watches in horror as the corpse reaches up and tears a synthetic bullet wound off his head. He is completely unscathed. The body was alive the whole time. The key to that chain is in the bathtub, the man says. Adam screams in terror and despair as this man, who viewers recognize as the cancer patient John, pauses for a moment and says, "Game over." Before slamming the door shut, Adam is once again locked inside of the room that will now become his tomb. All right, that was our recap.
Yes.
Very exciting. A lot of things happen in this movie.
So many things happen in this movie. And even though, like, there are not many locations in the film in general, like, it was well done. It was very well done, especially for 2004. It very much gave me grungy 2004
Oh, it is
vibes.
so grungy.
So grungy in a good way.
I think this movie, like, definitely has super strong aesthetics, and I feel like that's what makes the brand so strong. Something about this isn't necessarily true because, you know, this movie was done for $1 million, and it ended up grossing over $100 million. So
wow.
it made its budget like over 100 times over. It was a very profitable film, still one of the most profitable movies ever made. That being said, like, I always felt like this movie's like an underdog, especially compared to like other horror franchises. Like I said, it is a little bit different. It's not your everyday slasher. I mean, the whole thing with this serial killer is that, quote unquote, he doesn't kill.
He doesn't kill. It's the
that the traps, they find ways for them to kill themselves in a lot of these ways. Now, something I will say about this film is, like, I think a lot of us remember the film for being gruesome, but this film doesn't actually show a lot of it.
It really doesn't. This one is a really just cool story, because I was like, I really hope this isn't like a single location film. When this is like my processing through it, I was like, I don't want this to be like the only thing.
Right.
And it wasn't. It gave me more. So
it has a few parts.
But I was like, because I remembered it in my head. I remembered some like aspects of it. Like, I was like, I really hope that this is just not the only thing that goes on. And then we finally got to see those scenes where, like, we meet Detective Tapp, who I really enjoyed.
Danny Glover.
Lethal Weapon. The Color Purple, so many
Right.
movies. He's amazing.
Apparently, they were only able to get him for a couple of days because, like I said, $1 million budget. They don't have a lot of money. So all of his stuff was shot in just a couple of days.
That is absolutely bonkers. I think this movie in general was like filmed in like 18 days is what I saw.
Yep. So after they signed the contracts, they started filming 2 months after. And
that is absolutely
8 weeks after, and then they filmed the entire thing in 18 days. And then the movie premiered 2 days after it was finished at the Sundance Film Festival.
Oh my god!
So all of this was just like, it's super inspiring, if I'm being honest, because it's just two, just freshly graduated film students who were able to just fly by the seat of their pants here and there. Several things. I mean, like Lee Winnell, the writer, being one of the cast members. Also, he came back and when they were editing the movie, they were like, oh snap, we're missing like a few really important shots. Mm-hmm. So they, instead of getting any of the actors back to shoot them, they just had Lee Winnell play him. And it was just like a Dr. Gordon walking away. Or just like all shots that where the face isn't necessary. Mm-hmm. Like some of them were Lee Winnell playing the role in reshoots because he didn't. That way they wouldn't have to pay anybody more money because they didn't have it.
Right.
And so I just think it's so inspiring that two of these people did that, and now they're both gone on to do amazing thing. And it's not like James Wan is that old. He's
not.
He's I think in his 40s, and oftentimes you don't get into. I mean, he has so many movies under his belt. Usually you don't even get to start directing movies until you're in your 30s or 40s.
Yeah. There's an off-season film that we'll have to get to that I know for a fact that you will appreciate because of if you have a really strong connection to James Wan in general, oh my God, you will adore it because it's very unlike anything he's done. And I'm sure you've heard about it a little bit, maybe.
I don't know.
Malignant?
Okay, so I've heard that. I've heard a lot of controversy about that.
People didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it, but a lot of people who appreciate appreciate movies, I appreciated it.
So you liked it.
My mom liked it. A lot of people.
That's interesting because I heard somebody say in particular, I've never seen it, but that it they saw a lot of, this is James Wan first feature debut.
Yeah.
So he was still working his style out, but that Malignant especially is one of the films that you see can be connected to Saw. That was you can see where his roots came from, how he started and ended up with a movie like Malignant. But yeah, I'd be super stoked to watch it.
I just would love to hear your take on it because it's a fun movie, just very fun, very unlike anything he's done. I loved it a lot, but so this just James Wan and Lee Winnell, they're wonders. They're just wonders. You don't hear a lot of stories like these.
No, I love the team dynamic too. I like it because you see it often, between Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, or just actors or directors.
Danny Elfman as well typically is paired with
Danny
them
Elfman.
as well.
And it's just fun to see certain team ups in movies that end up working together, like Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. They do a lot of films together. It's always fun to me.
Christopher Nolan and so many of his other
he has a whole batch of people. So does Adam Sandler. He has
there's so many people who just really enjoy people's performance. I mean, for example, Mike Flanagan, great director, has a whole ensemble of actors he likes to recycle. So does Ryan Murphy in American Horror Story. So you can't shame him for it because you have people that will do a good job and their performance, what they're capable of, and you can also push their limits too. It's just fun.
It is really fun. I also really appreciate it when directors get their old friends to be in a cameo or something.
Yes, I love it.
Just because it's fun for the audience, but it's also they're giving them a paycheck. You know what I mean? They don't have to be in this movie at all, but now because they get some residuals because of it or something.
Yeah.
I think that's super fun. We talked about Danny Glover and Lee Winnell. We get Carrie Elwes, who
Princess Bride,
very notable from Princess Bride, and Men in Tights.
Men in Tights. Yeah.
I've seen Princess Bride before, and I've really enjoyed. Really fun movie. I watched this with my partner Bailey, and she was very surprised. She was like, "Oh, it is him." And it is. Oh
my God, she was beautiful in that film.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very charming film.
Very charming film. His character obviously is a sleazy man in this one. I kind of sensed it in him anyway, because ultimately when you have these two people here, and you're like, why are you here? What do you remember? Why are you here? What do you remember? That's just a very
yeah.
I don't know, like it gives me like a sense of mystery, but also like a anxiety thing where like, oh, I bet I can guess, and I was completely fucking wrong.
Like you said, this movie is super grungy, very like dirty, slimy. All of the characters are very flawed.
Very flawed. But you also end up rooting for them as well.
Oh, you know, this is part of the endearment. I don't know why. I can't explain it to you, but like, I love Dr. Gordon and I love Adam. Like,
I love Adam a lot more than I love Dr. Gordon.
I love both of them. They're both super charming to me. Yeah, and I don't think that the film depicts them as charming as they are in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know. So as part of it is like a headcanon kind of thing. But I think Adam, since I was a kid, I just related to him a little bit because he's younger. Mm-hmm. And I love the name Adam. I know that's such a silly thing. But something about his demeanor. He has like a childlike demeanor.
He does.
Not only is he younger, but like
he's very rebellious.
He's very rebellious.
Starving artist, quite literally. Like
yes, but he's also, you know, a little bit vulgar. He's a little bit whiny.
He's what's the word? He goes against the grain. He's very almost kind of eat the rich as well in a way before his time.
Yeah, quite a bit. You know, he talks about how like the sewer lines go down every neighborhood, you know, including yours. Dr. Gordon, you know, he also has a lot going on. Dr. Gordon, for me, is super charming, mainly because of one dynamic. But for most of the film, he's kind of depicted as a very like boring, like I just can't imagine living his life. He's like all work all the time. He goes home, and even his home seems so boring. Like he's on his laptop, he works, and because of that, he kind of neglects his family. He doesn't cheat on his wife, but he arranges to cheat on his wife, and he, you know, ends up regretting a lot of this. And I think what makes him so charming to me is the end of the film, because while all this stuff has been going on, this is a man, in my opinion, who does love his family and who is like would do anything for them to the point where he would, you know, saw his foot off,
quite literally cut his own foot off
and kill a man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in that way I do see that, but he's just sleazy to me. But also like, there's like this dynamic that like he I don't really know what the mom does. We don't really get to know what the mom does at all.
She might just be a stay-at-home mom because he's a doctor.
She could just be, and that's fine. No shame. That's fine. That's a hard job. Believe me. Like even babysitting like at normal hours, I'm like, phew, I'm ready to give this child back to their parents. But there's like, you don't know, but like it's like he gets to clock in and out of his family is what it feels like. Yeah. Like his family is work for him, which I mean, yes, it is work, marriage, family, relationships, everything's work, but it's not like work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why he's here. And, you know, because the big theme about Jigsaw, he is a person who takes people who don't appreciate their life, according to him, and puts them in a situation where they get to decide if they survive, they'll have that new appreciation for life. And if they don't, they didn't deserve to keep going in the first place. Because the whole crux of this is that the killer, John Kramer, he is a cancer patient. And so he wants other people to, you know, get the opportunity. He wants other people to not waste their opportunity at life.
It's a very flawed take, but it's also very like, flawed. I understand.
Yes, I think.
It's just like, go to therapy, babe.
Yeah. And also, there's another aspect to it, too, where, like, you could kill none of these people. But if you give them, and don't do this
just
either.
Give them like a good psychological
scare. Yeah, maybe they're gonna appreciate life after that. You don't have to kill them.
Yeah, just make them think you're gonna do it, but then be like, all right.
I think a lot of that comes from, especially back in the day, 2004. A lot of people, when they went to go see this movie, it was just like an eye-opening. That, you know, there's a huge twist at the end, and when you come out of it, you come thinking that Jigsaw, wow, he's a mastermind, and he has a good moral. You know what I mean? And I think for 2004 audiences, a lot of the other stuff that we're like, well, is kind of, you don't think about as much, you know, because of, you know, the time we have, you know, you talk about going to therapy, babe.
Yeah.
Like there isn't any of that. Like you get shunned for like, oh, therapy? Like you think I'm a nut?
Yeah. In the 90s and 2000s, I know that it was more like, but I mean, it was still more common than it was in like say the 50s and the 60s.
Of course, yeah,
and the
definitely.
70s. I mean, hell, some of those people would be like sent away and put in like actual like institutions and stuff. That's just so sad.
But I just think this movie in general is a little different under a 2023 light. I think it doesn't hold up as well. But I think the legacy is what really propels the movie into a lot of people's minds. Yeah. And for me personally, my heart.
It's just so good. And then again, like the reference or the connection that we see to the film Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, you see it here with Detective Tapp, which I will let you know, I never fucking made the reference. That's a Dead by Daylight, like literally a Dead by Daylight survivor character. Did not know that. He was from the Saw franchise. I got to actually get to know that character, and I really like felt for him because when his partner died, that was a really sad thing. And
it was,
but like I really enjoyed their dynamic too, and like I was like rooting for them to catch him, to end this, because who would put people through actual torture devices and make them do that to fight for their life? That's really sad, but ultimately you don't know everyone's individual story.
It's also really tragic, to see him lose his job. Detective Tapp loses his job and becomes a man obsessed with catching the Jigsaw killer, who he perceives to be Dr. Gordon.
Yes, which is how we like get all this like full circle moment. Crazy, because that was a crazy twist. I was like, oh, because I didn't remember any of this, so I feel like I was it almost felt like a first watch through, because I was just like, I slightly remember this. I know there was 2 people in a room. I know a guy cuts his foot off. I don't know this. I was like, wow.
Yeah, so it's super. Like, I mean, let's talk about it. Like the whole big thing. I think the thing that people often remember, besides the reverse bear trap, which I mean is an insane thing amongst itself. I think the cinematography for the whole reverse bear trap thing is like
so cool.
It's so particular, like all just like how crazed everything appears, and in general the idea of like it's so self-descriptive and visceral in just reverse bear trap that it opens from the inside out as opposed to clamping inwards.
Yeah,
I think it's insane. But besides that, I think obviously the namesake of the movie, Saw, him sawing off his own foot, which I think is you call it's body horror. It's self-mutilation. I think Adam's reaction during that scene is it would be my reaction. Like he's just freaking out.
Your girl would be,
you'd be knocked out.
If I am very much afraid of blood. Like, okay, I know it's funny and it's ironic because people are like, that's funny, that's weird. But I'm like, I watch horror movies. I know that's fake blood. I know it's not real. Sometimes they make it look so real that I'm like, ooh. And I have like little weird phobias sometimes, or if it's like a needle and it's getting way too close. Like some of those things do bother me. If I see an Achilles heel get cut in like a horror film, makes me want to die a little bit inside. Like there are sensitivities, but like I know it's fake, but it's still kind of like sometimes like, I don't know, real blood. If that were to happen in front of me, real blood, the smell, the sight of it, I'd simply collapse and or faint.
Yeah, it looks like Adam all but collapses. I mean, that's just so, like, to see somebody reach that moment of desperation is just so insane. And then
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You know what's funny to me? I was thinking about this, like whenever the big reveal at the end, when we meet John Kramer, Jigsaw, like why wouldn't they have like checked him at all? Why would they not have like checked his body? That's
because he blew his brains out, is what it looks like. I think if I saw a body that looked, I wouldn't question somebody who had blown their brains out.
Yeah, but they're like searching for clues around this room. You don't think
also the body was in the middle of the room. They couldn't reach the body. They had to, one of them, to get the tape recorder, had to get a shirt and try to drag it back from the body. So they couldn't reach it.
That's true. But still, my brain's just like, you wouldn't try to check it?
But even if they did, I mean, he was wearing like a plain t-shirt and like some white shorts. I don't think there'd be much to check. And I don't think Jigsaw would have left anything on his person that would have helped him anyway.
I don't know. Maybe check his pulse, anything. I'm sure he took some sort of like...
Who would check a dead man's pulse?
He's not dead. That's the irony.
Have you ever come across a dead body and think, let me check their pulse?
I've never seen, other than like at a funeral home, I've never like...
Did you check their pulse? Of course not. You know what I mean? You assume they're dead.
They're in a casket. I'm in my brain processes them as they are gone. They are deceased.
I think if you don't think your brain would process the same thing with a man with a bullet wound?
If I'm in survival mode,
okay,
I gotta do what's best for me,
Fair enough. Do you think you would be, how it took Dr. Gordon the whole film to end up, chopping his leg off with the saw? you find the saw, how long until you do that, do you think?
I have like really tiny hands and feet.
Okay.
I feel like I could slip my way out of it.
A lot of people say they would break instead of chopping their foot off, they would break their foot.
I'd rather do that.
And slide it off.
I'd rather do that.
I don't think I could do either. I think I'd have an easier time sawing my foot off, if I'm being honest.
No, because then you're footless. Footloose. I'm sorry.
His foot is loose. And this is what I talk about. Like, this movie isn't super gruesome in the sense of like, when he's chopping his foot off, you don't see him doing it. You just see like his knee up. So they don't show it. And then when
expecting it to be more gruesome than that.
Well, I think it didn't have to be. I think just the nature of like the idea of somebody doing it is enough to really like, and I think it's one of those things too where like often I think what's even scarier than a visual is like your imagination of it. That's true. I'm pretty sure most people who haven't watched the film recently remember him like seeing him chop his foot off, but it doesn't actually ever happen. Which, they're on a cheap budget, so doing all that prosthetic work would have been more expensive.
It's true.
And even when you see him crawling around, his foot is just underneath his pant leg. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I really didn't pay that much attention.
Exactly.
To that.
So
that's really funny.
Yeah. They try to get away with as much as they can. Something I don't know how they did at all is how pale Dr. Gordon is at the end of the movie. Like he just seems like ghostly. Like
sullen.
Yes, like he is like damn near death. I have no clue how they get that kind of effect.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's just makeup or maybe lighting
you think
or something.
Makeup?
Makeup can do wonders.
Yeah. But I thought that was amazing. So what do you think about John Kramer like rising up from the dead? Do you remember when you first watched it? Or?
No, I didn't remember this at all, and I was like, like I was shocked because then
really?
I was like in my brain when they were like, oh, that's Zepp from the hospital. I was like, I thought Jigsaw had like blonde hair or something. I just remember it being like that style, but like blonde.
So okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool that you weren't expecting it. That's
so
awesome.
I was like, I don't think that's him because I know what Tobin Bell looks like. So I was like, that's not Tobin Bell. Did they change like jigsaws throughout the films or something?
Oh, that's so funny.
So I was like, this is not him, but maybe it is in this. I don't know. So I was really racking my brain, and then when they finally revealed, oh no, he also got a tape. I was like, oh.
He was isn't that crazy that the person you thought was the killer was in his own freaking trap?
Oh my god!
Because that's what I mean by like the whole mastermind
literally
aspect of it.
Though, like so cool, like thought everything out.
Yeah, Tobin Bell actually was on the floor for the shooting of all the bathroom scenes.
That is so funny to me because I'm like, what an easy like shooting day. Like,
you know what's even crazier? We're gonna get to this later, but the person that was in the wire maze trap, they were actually initially offered the Jigsaw role.
Really?
Yes, but they turned it down because they thought it was a very minor role. Right.
I mean, well, in this film,
it is a very minor role.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. They didn't plan to make it a sequel. Any sequels? I know they were about to, get a 10th movie, but this was supposed to be a one and done.
That's really fascinating to me because my mom was like, "Yeah, they just keep fucking making the movies. Like they just keep going on and on." I don't think she said fucking, but I'm adding it for emphasis because it's emphatic.
Right.
But it's like. Yeah, they do. I'm like, dang, like 10 movies? That's a lot of movies.
That's a lot of movies. I think horror franchises are just like, I've never heard of it until now, but there's like we said, there's 9 Texas Chainsaw, there's 10 Saws. I don't know how many Freddy movies there are, but I know there's a lot of Hellraiser movies.
There's a lot of Hellraiser movies, about 10 or so.
But it works out because these movies...
There's like 12 Friday the 13th films.
That's a lot, yeah.
They need to make another one, just make an even 13 and be like, done, no more.
That one needs to be super special, right?
It does.
And it has to come out on Friday the 13th.
It better. Otherwise, I don't want to see it. What's the point?
Yeah, but she's not wrong. There is a crap ton of these movies.
Well, I mean, some of the I really like a good small franchise, and I think some of those are coming back, and I'm excited for them. And we'll get into that when we get like into some of the more like obscure indie kind of franchises that are coming out, because I really appreciate what they're doing, but. I don't know. I'm like, damn, why are there so many movies?
There's something about like horror movies that are just fun a lot of the time, especially when they're not super self-contained or when we do get a requel. Because I could honestly watch Scream movies and Saw movies and Texas Chainsaw movies until the end of the day. Like
that's true.
I would like
if they kept making them, I would still go see them. I know we've already established they've already started working on Scream 7, which is exciting, and I'm
excited to watch it.
Excited to watch it, especially after Scream 6. That was so good.
Keep bringing them. I'll keep watching them, you know?
Like, I told it was really funny is I told my aunt, I was like, yeah, Patrick and I went to go see Scream 6. She's like, they're still making those? And I was like, yeah, dude.
And they're not going to stop.
They're not going to stop now.
Yeah, give me more Jenny Ortega.
But you know what? It's so cool is that with the beauty of the long franchises is that it keeps, like, for example, like, it keeps fans coming forever and ever because, like, you know, like, those movies, like, meant something to, like, our parents.
Yeah.
And then they show it to their kids. And then we will show it to our kids kind of thing. Like, it's something that's really cool.
It's super special.
It creates new horror fans throughout the entire, like, throughout time. It's just fun.
It spans generations. You know, like for a great example, last season we watched Texas Chainsaw. Like, your Texas Chainsaw is the 2000s movies. Yeah. Like, those are the ones that you resonate most with. And there was like 4 movies before that. You know what I mean? So I think it's super cool where, like, of the new 2022 Netflix movie is probably another kid's Texas Chainsaw. That's the one they grew up with. You know what I mean? So
and I hope that it entices them to look back.
Yeah.
And then have an appreciation for where we started, because some of these films that we're going to get into in the future, I'm like, whew. Some of them are kind of, like, wacky, but that's kind of the, like we talked about, the appeal and the love. But this one is just unlike any of them that we've seen. This is, like, the first franchise that we've started that began in the 2000s as well.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. Yeah, this is, like, our newest franchise that we've covered so far.
Because all the other ones have started, Scream started in the 90s. Trying to think of the other ones. Most of them started in, like, 70s and 80s.
70s, yeah. I think Evil Dead also started in the 70s as well as Texas Chainsaw. So yeah, this movie being a little bit of a newer film, like you said, a franchise that's still going on. I mean, Tobin Bell, he's still around. He
loves it. Loves it.
I think it's super cool, and it's super fun. Yeah. Now I want to go over the traps with you. There's 3 of these in the film. Like, there are really more than 3, but, like, 3 of them that get, like, the cinematography treatment that is associated with traps. For example, ones that we're not going to include in this are the bathroom trap in general.
Yeah, that one's not really as cool anyway. As the
I think it's super cool, but it's not like a short, like, thing. You know what I mean?
It also doesn't have, like, its own, like, brand, I guess. Like, it doesn't have its own name. It's just...
Right.
That's just, like, a scene.
Another one that we're not going to cover for this is the one that Jigsaw was working on in his workshop when Detective Tapp and Sing came over and kind of interrupted his whole plan.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I wouldn't have even considered that one either.
And we're also not considering, well, I think is, like, super cool to watch, is the booby trap that Jigsaw laid for Detective Sing.
That was also very cool.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I mean, just, like, all the, like, little, like, I called it aesthetic earlier, but it's also just, like, how Jigsaw uses all these analog and, like, mechanic parts and, like, all the shotguns laid on across the top of the doorway. I think it's just so neat. It's just so particular. But the traps that we are going to go over today are the razor wire maze, the flammable jelly, and the reverse bear trap, of course. Now, these are the 3 main ones that we get in the film. I think they're all pretty gruesome.
They're all very gruesome. Yeah.
Like, starting with the razor wire maze, I think the logic behind, like, this person being in this trap is ridiculous. Is that, you know, this man tried cutting himself.
Yeah.
And so therefore he doesn't appreciate life and shouldn't live. Now, that being said, the parameters of the trap are very ironic in that, like,
yes,
if he does nothing, he'll die. But he has to do the thing that hurts to survive.
And he was so close.
Yeah, he was really close. But, like, that seems like such a bad way to go. I mean, they said they found stomach acid on the ground.
I would quite literally just stand there and die.
Yeah, I might have also just sat in there and just, you know, well,
I'm like, the thought, no, babe.
I'm good.
Yeah. You remember the thing that happened? Forget it. Because, like, I'm going to stand here. The reason that you have me here, I appreciate everything now. Thank you. Sorry. So sorry that I even thought about that. Even though it's mental illness and it is not.
Yeah, the reasoning doesn't hold up. The second one we have is the flammable jelly, which to me is super gnarly, but also seems quite impossible to me.
And also, it's not as cool as the other ones to me.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I don't know. It was like...
I thought it was just a little too much because, one, there's broken glass on the floor.
Yeah.
Two,
It wasn't cohesive. It was just like too much going.
There was a lot going on.
Too much happening.
And it just seems like, how am I supposed? Because apparently, he's covered in flammable jelly, and he has this candle light that he has to use to read all the numbers. But if he gets too close to it, it's going to light himself on fire. There's no way he was not going to light himself on fire.
Yeah, that one feels like they set you up, babe.
Yeah.
Like they knew.
The reasoning for him was just that I think he committed some kind of insurance fraud and pretended to be sick. So maybe that's why.
Yes, it was like, I think, disability fraud.
Yeah, so maybe that's why Jigsaw had a particular vendetta, because he suffers in the same thing. Mm-hmm. But maybe set up for the American healthcare system to be the one in the trap somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how we do that, but they're as much of a.
That's gonna be really interesting though, because I would like to see the trajectory from this 2004 film. It's gonna be really fun to see like what happens in the 2023 film.
Oh yeah.
Because like of the new age like themes that are happening and stuff. Like I wonder what. Yeah, I'm just excited. Okay.
I'm excited too.
But yeah, the flammable jelly just wasn't it for me.
And then we have the reverse bear trap, the most iconic of the three.
Very fucking cool.
I think and also this is the one where we get to see the Jigsaw on the TV. Billy on the TV and saying the whole "I want to play a game" theme. I think is super. It's just the brand is so strong. The mechanism of the bear trap itself is so interesting.
It's also just terrifying, especially because they had like the demonstration in the video. I was like,
yeah, that doesn't look like fun.
You better get out of that, like.
And she barely did.
Barely, and that, oh my God, it gave me so much anxiety.
Yeah, it's really tense. And the fact that, the gentleman on the floor is alive still.
Yes!
Just unaware. It's just horrifying.
Oh, it was just like a drug thing. Like he
Could you imagine you wake up like that? Terrifying.
I'd be like, you better hit here too, because I'm not trying to feel this pain.
Yeah. Apparently that was also another one of the producers for the film.
Really?
Yeah. So see, like I said, everybody working on this was like all in to like make it, get it done, and see what kind of numbers it does, and it spawned one of the most profitable franchises, which is so cool.
Really fun. I love like knowing this tidbit because it makes it more lovable as well.
Yeah. And like I said, Tobin Bell was on the floor for all the scenes that he shot in. They offered, the plan was to like have like a doll or something on the ground instead, like a fake version of himself, a dummy. But he insisted that he stayed on the floor for them because he wanted the scene when he got up to look like he had been laying there for hours. He didn't want to like just get up like normal or anything. He wanted to come off as genuine, which I think is super cool because he does look like he's like being reborn or like raised from the dead when he gets up.
Oh man, it's so cool. And the fact that like he just like rips off the makeup that he applied. I was like,
yeah.
And my mouth dropped. I was like, oh my God.
That song, I love that song. I've loved that song ever since I watched it. I haven't seen all the horror movies, but all the ones I've seen, I don't think there's a better theme in a horror movie. Do you know which one I'm talking about? The da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na. I love it.
It was so intense. I was like,
yeah,
what?
I love the song. I also love, you keep hearing like, I want to play a game. And his last words in the movie are game over right before he slams the door shut.
That was lit. It was honestly like I was like, I'll be honest. Going into this, I was like, I'm not really looking forward to the Saw franchise. It doesn't really like do anything for me. I don't have a connection to it. But I do have a connection to it that I didn't even know with James Wan and Lee Winnell.
Exactly. This movie has so much heart in it, in my opinion.
And it just, oh man, just this like learning all of these like little tidbits and the behind the scenes, it does make it so much more endearing than I even gave it credit for.
Yes, I really appreciate that because that's how I feel, and that's how I felt growing up watching these movies, and I could never really identify it because, like I said, I don't like blood, guts, and horror. But that's something about these movies has always been endearing to me. Despite all the flawed characters, despite all the messy stuff, James Wan and Lee Winnell are just brand new, fresh-faced, and they made it work. And I appreciate that to no end as another creator.
And also, like, especially for Lee Winnell, like, this is his, like, first role as an actor in this movie, too. Like, he did fantastic. Like,
I agree. He gets criticized often for this role, but I think he did a great job.
He did a really good job. Like, he, like... I'd be weary of the other person, like not knowing them. Like very relatable character, very relatable.
Yeah,
especially being somebody from like a lower like working class kind of thing. Like it's very relatable, especially like when you're faced with someone who is completely opposite. You have nothing in common with them other than the fact that you're both humans. You both like, and like he said, like there is a little bit of that. There is a little bit of that underlying like theme. I don't know if it was intended, but it is there.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's super interesting too. Just like how the movie begins, and they're like you said, they're opposites, and they go through their trials and tribulations. They get mad at each other, and they kind of have like a lot of trauma bonding. Really, is what it is.
Yeah.
By the end, the last thing they do is they embrace each other, and I think this movie maybe has also like made me trauma bond with them as if I was in the room with them, and that's why I like the character so much, just because I spend so much time with them just alone in a space. They're chained to opposite ends of the bathroom that they're in, and you feel bad for them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because it's unjustified. It's just because this guy is upset that he's dying, that he's like, I'm gonna take this shit on you, and you get a trap, and you get a trap.
Yeah, the Oprah of serial killers.
Yeah. You know what? You don't appreciate life. Like, that's just... Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think...
It's just projection.
Yeah, this movie should just be called Projection.
That was funny. That was good.
Yeah. But, I love this movie. Obviously, we can't rank it.
We can't rank it yet.
Because it's the only movie by itself, so it stands at number 1.
Stands at number 1 by default, but out of the 3 like traps that we talked about, if I had to pick one as like my favorite from this one, I feel like it's a little bit basic of me, but the reverse bear trap is just very
so
good.
Iconic. Like, it's kind of hard not to pick it.
But also the whole process of her getting out of it and like having to like dig through guts to find a key and then have to like undo the key herself and
that's where I would have messed up. If I had 10 seconds left, I wouldn't be able to figure that stuff out behind my head.
The anxiety, especially as soon as she barely got it off her head and then it snapped.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it.
Oh man, could you have gone through with that? Like, especially knowing that, like, they said the guy, like the guy that you have to dig into is dead, and then he wakes up. Like, what would you do?
Here's the thing. This is the argument against the reverse bear trap.
Okay.
It's the easiest one to do. The other 2, you sacrifice. You hurt yourself. This one, you hurt somebody else.
That's
so
true.
It is. If you're a morally good person, it's just as hard.
Oh,
you know, because like, I don't want to hurt this MFer. But the year 2023, I feel like we don't care about each other anymore. We just yoink, get that shit out of there.
We also don't care about ourselves. So let's be honest.
You're right,
those other ones where we have to hurt ourselves, we're like, okay, I already hate myself anyway.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening. I'm glad, Geraldine, that we're going through this. I'm super happy to like go through the rest of all these movies.
I'm flying blind, guys. This is going to be the first franchise where I have really only seen the first film and none of the others.
Oh, that's so fun. Like I said, the tables have been flipped a little bit, and I'm the one that's excited now for you to get to watch all these movies.
Yeah, I have no prior knowledge other than I know Tobin Bell, and that's it. And I think I know a couple of traps in like future films, but I don't really know specifically which ones. I think I just know of them, and but that's it. So I'm like, we'll see what happens.
Okay, yeah.
I do have a question though. Before we go, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember. Did Dr. Gordon die or did he make it?
It's unknown. I do. Like I said, this movie wasn't intended with a sequel.
That's wild.
And it's before after credits scene, so we don't really know what the fates end up being of Dr. Gordon or Adam. If you remember at the beginning of the film, Adam's only thing to win his trap was to survive until 6, which he did. He did survive until 6. He got locked up anyway. Dr. Gordon, he didn't finish his trap. He was supposed to have killed Adam by 6, and he didn't accomplish that either. You know, he crawled away. So it's left up in the air what happens to these 2 characters. And I don't know what the Lee Winnell and James Wan, I don't know what their intention was, but I do always love a good like mystery ending.
I hate a mystery ending. Well, sometimes I like it. I love an abrupt ending to things.
Me too.
Where then it's like there's no resolution. You kind of get to make up what happened in your head.
What do you think? What would your preference be?
My preference would be that he did get away, he made it home, whatever. But he was pretty fucking pale. If I had to say,
Yeah,
if I do say so.
out.
So he was like, I will die soon if I don't go do something. So it's kind of a toss up. It's like I on one hand I hope that he got home to his family and he appreciates his family now. Maybe he lives a happy life in the future.
And what for Adam?
Just with one foot loose.
Yeah.
So sorry. And then I guess hopefully he gets help for Adam, but then again we don't know. It's up in the air again. It'd be kind of cool to see what happens because I have no idea what happens in between any of these movies. But in the 10th one, maybe it'd be nice to see that they both survived. And
I would love that.
And maybe we get to see them again.
Because I love these characters. I would love to see Adam again. And
but
obviously Lee Winnell is around, you know?
But, I mean, that is kind of like a big hope. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I literally this is my first watch. Well, not my first watch through. It's my first, remember to watch through. Right. I barely remember the first time watching it. Yeah. I don't even know how old I was, so...
I really appreciate the film. It's a movie that tries to tell us to appreciate life. You know, the way it goes about it
really
isn't necessarily awesome, but I do, after seeing the movie, I do think about it, like to appreciate life and also to not take your loved ones for granted.
And also, it does, everyone is going through their own thing. Everyone is just in a survival mode, essentially, and then they learn to appreciate, they should really dig deep and appreciate life. Figure out their why. Why are they here in general? And they ask that question in general in that movie in the beginning when Adam and Dr. Gordon are going back and forth and they're like, let's figure out the why. Why are we here? But then they're figuring out what led them to be in the traps. But it's still a big looming question. Why are we here? Instead of focusing on the negative things, why we don't appreciate our life. There's a lot of nuanced themes here.
Yeah.
Maybe it was intended. Maybe it wasn't. I feel like it may have been just a fun little movie.
I think so, but there's a lot to glean out of it, I think.
Oh, yeah. There's so many cool things. So it's just really fun. And I'm really excited. And I definitely came into it with neutral expectations where I was I remember watching it a little bit. Don't really know what happened. I know some things, but we'll see. Not really excited about getting into the franchise at first. And then now I'm now I'm excited.
All right, yeah.
Now we're buckled up in the seat.
Yep.
I'm on the roller coaster ride. I'm waiting on them to be okay, and then they press the button, and then we start slowly going off. That's where I am right now, guys.
That's fun. There is a Saw roller coaster ride, by the way.
Where?
I'm not sure quite where. It might be at a Six Flags or something, but it is quite infamous for being very scary.
I gotta find it. I love a good roller coaster, and I love something scary. Put them together.
Well, we'll have to check it out. Maybe with you guys, audience. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're excited to be on this ride with you, and we'll see you guys next time.
So see you next time. Welcome to season 4.
Woo!
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa. Editing and music composition by Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa.